The silence before the storm. The Galactic Assembly Hall gleamed under artificial light, its vast dome filled with representatives from 100 worlds. In the center of it all stood Commander Elena Reyes, Earth's chief diplomat. To the assembled aliens, she was just another human, soft-skinned, fragile, and painfully diplomatic. The galaxy had welcomed Earth into their fold 70 years ago, with patronizing tolerance, the way one might welcome a child to an adult table. Humans were viewed as curiosities at best. Their ships were slow and bulky compared to the sleek vessels of the Azurians. Their weapons technology lagged decades behind the Vargosi Imperium, and unlike the telepathic Nitheri or the silicon-based Draconids, humans possessed no exceptional biological advantages. They were, by all apparent measures, unremarkable. What the galaxy failed to understand was that humans had spent their entire evolutionary history as both predator and prey. They had survived ice ages, asteroid impacts, plagues, and their own self-destructive tendencies. They had clawed their way to the stars not through superior biology or inherited technology, but through relentless adaptation and unfathomable patience. Commander Reyes stood before the assembly with perfect posture, her dark hair pulled back in a severe bun, her blue uniform immaculate. The topic of discussion was familiar. The Vargosi Imperium's latest border expansion had consumed 3 independent systems in rapid succession. The Terran Federation once again requests that the Imperium respect the autonomy of neutral systems. Reyes stated, her voice calm despite the gravity of her words. Continued aggression risks destabilizing established trade routes and threatens the peace we all claim to value. From his elevated platform, High Marshal Drak of the Vargosi sneered, multiple rows of teeth visible behind his gray-scaled lips. Standing nearly 3 meters tall, with armored hide and claws that could tear through reinforced steel, he physically embodied the Imperium's military supremacy. The humans speak of peace because they cannot speak of war, Drak rumbled, drawing appreciative clicks and hums from his allies. If your species wishes to be taken seriously, perhaps develop weapons that don't make our warriors laugh. Laughter rippled through the chamber. Commander Reyes didn't flinch. She simply nodded once, made a small notation on her datapad, and retook her seat. What the assembly didn't see was the message that flashed across her secure channel. Contingency HELIO is authorized. Back on Earth, and in hidden facilities across a dozen seemingly insignificant star systems, humans were busy. They had been busy for decades, building, planning, and waiting. When humanity first ventured into space and discovered they were far from the most advanced civilization, they made a crucial decision. Instead of racing to catch up technologically and risking alarm, they would present themselves as diplomatic, helpful, and harmlessly behind. Meanwhile, Earth quietly dedicated its resources to asymmetric advantages. They perfected stealth technologies while appearing to struggle with basic shield harmonics. They developed devastating kinetic weapons while publicly researching inefficient laser arrays. They infiltrated every major power's communication networks while appearing to barely understand galactic translation protocols. Admiral James Chen stood in Earth's Strategic Command Center, watching red dots represent Vargosi fleet movements across a holographic display. Beside him, Dr. Amara Okafor, head of Earth's Special Technologies Division, studied data scrolling across her tablet. They're moving on the Epsilon Research Station, Chen noted, his weathered face grim. Just as we predicted. Dr. Okafor nodded. Epsilon has been broadcasting false research data for years. They think they're hitting a vulnerable biological research outpost. How many of our people are still there? None. We evacuated the last team 3 days ago and activated the autonomous systems. The Vargosi will find exactly what we want them to find. Within 12 hours, a Vargosi battle group descended on Epsilon Station. The minimal defenses fell quickly, exactly as expected from a human facility. The Imperium's elite troops stormed the station, expecting to capture valuable biological research. Instead, they found empty labs and dormant systems. High Marshal Drock received the report with disdain. Just another example of humans abandoning their positions rather than fighting. Pathetic but expected. He ordered the station stripped of anything useful, then destroyed. What the Vargosi didn't realize was that for 7 years, Epsilon had been cultivating specially engineered nanites programmed to target Vargosi biology. As the Imperial troops ransacked the station, these microscopic machines infiltrated their armor systems, bided their time, and then followed them home. 3 weeks later, as Commander Reyes sat through another assembly session listening to Drock boast about the Imperium's newest conquest, she received a single encrypted message. Helios Ionite. Across Vargosi space, on 23 major worlds, and aboard 17 battle stations, the infiltrated nanites activated simultaneously. They didn't kill. That wasn't the human way. Instead, they targeted military systems. Communication networks crashed. Weapon platforms went offline. Navigation systems on warships suddenly failed, leaving the mighty vessels drifting helplessly. In the assembly hall, High Marshal Drock's communication device erupted with emergency alerts. His scales paled as report after report flooded in of catastrophic systems failures across the Imperium. When he looked up, Commander Reyes was watching him with the steady gaze of a predator who had finally decided it was time to move. She stood, adjusted her uniform, and addressed the now silent chamber. The Terran Federation regrets that diplomatic solutions have failed. For 70 years, we have asked for respect. We have been patient. That patience has ended. On a hidden signal, Earth's true fleet emerged from camouflaged positions throughout the galaxy. These weren't the bulky, outdated ships the galaxy knew. These vessels were sleek, dark, and utterly invisible to standard sensors. They had been hiding in plain sight for decades, positioned strategically around every major military installation of potentially hostile powers. In orbit around the Vargosi homeworld, 7 stealth platforms decloaked simultaneously. They didn't fire weapons. They didn't need to. Their presence alone, appearing from nowhere directly above the most heavily defended planet in the Imperium, sent a clear message. Back in the assembly, Rice continued, her voice never rising above a conversational tone. We have disabled the offensive capabilities of the Vargosi Imperium. We could have destroyed them. Remember that. The nanite infiltration will dissipate within 30 days, leaving their defensive systems intact. By then, we expect the Imperium to have withdrawn from all illegally occupied territories. The assembly erupted in chaos. Species that had dismissed humans as inconsequential now looked at Reyes with new understanding and fear. The human standing before them had never been weak. She had been waiting. In the pandemonium, Tental, the ancient representative of the Nith-Eri consortium, approached Reyes. His translucent skin pulsed with the bioluminescent patterns that constituted his species' emotional language. The pattern he displayed was one rarely seen in the assembly: humility. You could have demonstrated this power years ago, he observed. Why wait? Reyes smiled slightly. Humans have always preferred to speak softly and carry a big stick. We gave diplomacy every chance to succeed. And now? She looked around at the panicked representatives, at High Marshal Drock being rushed from the chamber by his guards, at the shifting alliances already forming in the wake of this new reality. Now the galaxy understands that when humans talk about peace, it isn't because we fear war. It's because we excel at it. As the first day of humanity's revelation ended, species across the galaxy began reassessing everything they thought they knew about the quiet, diplomatic humans. They had never been witnessing the fumbling steps of an emerging species. They had been watching a predator patiently study its prey. When patience becomes power. The emergency session of the Galactic Assembly commenced exactly 26 hours after Earth's demonstration against the Vargosi Imperium. The Grand Chamber, usually arranged with meticulous attention to protocol and hierarchy, now resembled a chaotic marketplace. Representatives huddled in anxious groups. Security details stood at heightened alert, and the ambient noise level had doubled as panicked discussions echoed throughout the hall. Conspicuously empty was the Vargosi delegation's platform. Equally conspicuous was the calm demeanor of Commander Elena Reyes as she took her seat at Earth's modest station. No additional security accompanied her. No changes had been made to her appearance or demeanor. She might have been attending a routine budgetary meeting rather than the most significant political upheaval in 3 centuries of galactic politics. First Speaker Taliax of the Meridian Alliance called for order, her crystalline appendages creating harmonic tones that gradually silenced the chamber. This emergency session will address the unexpected actions of the Terran Federation and their implications for galactic stability, she announced, carefully avoiding inflammatory language. Commander Reyes has agreed to make a statement. All eyes, visual sensors, and sensory organs focused on the human as she approached the central podium. The silence was absolute. "Thank you, First Speaker," Reyes began. "I'll be brief. Yesterday's demonstration was not an act of aggression, but a necessary response to repeated violations of sovereignty and disregard for diplomatic process. The Terran Federation remains committed to peaceful coexistence, fair trade, and mutual respect." She paused, scanning the room with deliberate slowness. "That said, we feel it necessary to clarify some apparent misconceptions about humanity. For 70 years, many have mistaken our patience for weakness, our preference for diplomacy as fear, and our technological discretion as inferiority." A holographic display activated above the podium, showing a galactic map unlike any the Assembly had seen before. It highlighted hundreds of locations, some in deep space, others near major worlds, many within territories claimed by various powers. These markers represent just a fraction of humanity's established presence throughout the galaxy. Observer outposts, stealth platforms, and rapid response units, all capable of deploying countermeasures similar to what the Vargosi experienced yesterday. The chamber erupted again, dozens of representatives shouting questions and accusations. First Speaker Taliax Harmonix struggled to regain control. Through it all, Reyes stood impassively, waiting for the chaos to subside. Among the most agitated were the representatives of the Keldari Confederation, a militaristic alliance that had long viewed human expansion with suspicion. General Vaxcor, their senior delegate, pushed forward to the speaking position without recognition or permission. "This is an admission of espionage and territorial violation on an unprecedented scale," he bellowed, his auxiliary breathing sacs inflating with indignation. "The Confederation demands immediate disclosure of all human installations within our sovereign space." Reyes met his four-eyed glare with equanimity. "General, I can neither confirm nor deny specific placements. I will say that we have maintained observation capabilities proportionate to potential threats. The Confederation's recent military buildup along the Perseus Arm made certain precautions necessary." What Reyes didn't mention was that Admiral Chen and the Strategic Command were currently tracking a Keldari battle group, making a rapid approach toward the human colony on Proxima Centauri II. The Keldari, historically quick to test boundaries, had decided to probe humanity's resolve while the Assembly was distracted. They would soon discover their mistake. On the Keldari flagship Iron Fist, War Commander Draz finalized the attack plan. The humans revealed their hand against the Vargosi, but they can't have similar countermeasures prepared for us. Our systems are fundamentally different, and they've never had access to our military technology. His subordinate looked uncertain. "Intelligence suggests we should reconsider this demonstration strike, Commander." "Intelligence has consistently overestimated the humans," Draz snapped. "By the time their precious assembly session concludes, we'll have shown the galaxy that at least one power isn't intimidated by their parlor tricks." As the Iron Fist and its escort vessels accelerated toward Proxima Centauri, they failed to detect the 6 smooth, obsidian-like objects detaching from their hulls, objects that had been attached during routine maintenance at Keldari Space Dock 3 months earlier. Back in the assembly, Commander Reyes touched her earpiece briefly, then returned her attention to the ongoing debate. The slightest trace of a smile touched her lips before vanishing. "I suggest we take a brief recess," she said, interrupting a lengthy complaint from the Azurian representative. "I believe General Kor may wish to check on some developing situation." The Keldari general's communicator buzzed almost immediately. His complexion, normally a robust orange, faded to sickly yellow as he received the report. When the assembly reconvened 30 minutes later, the Keldari delegation was noticeably subdued. Word had spread quickly. Their surprise attack force had been completely neutralized without a single human ship being detected. The Iron Fist and its escorts now drifted powerless, life support their only functioning system. Commander Rice didn't mention the incident directly when she resumed speaking. She didn't need to. "Let me be clear about humanity's position going forward," she stated. "We have no territorial ambitions beyond our established colonies. We seek no tributes, no subjugation of other species, no revisions to existing trade agreements. All we require is respect for established boundaries and adherence to diplomatic processes." She paused, allowing her next words to carry appropriate weight. "The various devices we've developed, the nanite countermeasures, the stealth systems, the infiltration networks, these are not weapons of conquest. They are instruments of consequence. Those who choose cooperation will never need to concern themselves with these capabilities. Those who choose aggression will find that humans have spent decades preparing for exactly such contingencies. In the depths of neutral space, a meeting was taking place that would never appear in any official record. Admiral Chen had arranged to speak with High Marshal Drak of the Vargosi, away from the political theater of the assembly. The Vargosi leader, stripped of his usual entourage and military posturing, appeared diminished. His scales had lost their luster, and his normally rigid posture showed signs of fatigue. "You could have destroyed us," Drak stated without preamble. Admiral Chen nodded. "We could have. 7 times over the past 30 years, actually. Your expansion brought you into killing range of our contingency systems each time. Yet you waited until now. Why?" "Because extinction is failure," Chen replied simply. "Humanity learned that lesson painfully on Earth. We developed the capacity to destroy ourselves several times before we reached the stars. It taught us that the point isn't to demonstrate who can inflict the most damage. It's to create circumstances where inflicting damage becomes unnecessary." Drak's inner eyelids flickered, the Vargosi equivalent of contemplative surprise. "You genuinely prefer peace." "We do. But we prepare for war more thoroughly than anyone else in the galaxy. It's a paradox your analysts never reconciled." By the time the assembly session concluded 3 days later, a new understanding had emerged across the galaxy. Human diplomatic outposts, once dismissed as quaint establishments staffed by eager, harmless representatives, were now viewed with nuanced respect. The seemingly outdated research stations, the trade missions, the cultural exchange programs, all were reassessed as potential elements of an intelligence network of staggering sophistication. Humanity hadn't needed to build the biggest ships or the most powerful weapons. They had simply needed to watch, learn, and prepare targeted responses to specific threats. While other species developed technologies to overpower their enemies, humans had developed technologies to neutralize their enemies' power. In her private quarters, Commander Reyes finally allowed herself a moment of genuine relaxation. She removed her uniform jacket and poured a glass of genuine Earth whiskey, an extravagance she permitted herself only on significant occasions. Her communication screen activated, showing Admiral Chen's weathered face. "The Keldari have withdrawn from the Perseus Edge," he reported. "The Azurians are suddenly very interested in renegotiating our trade agreement, and 3 minor powers have requested defensive pacts." Reyes sipped her whiskey. "And the Vargosi?" "Drak is more pragmatic than expected. They're accelerating their withdrawal from contested territories and have proposed a direct communication channel to avoid misunderstandings." "Good." She gazed out her viewport at the glittering expanse of the assembly station and the stars beyond. "How long do you think this peace will last?" Chen considered. "A generation, maybe 2. long enough for us to continue developing our contingencies, long enough for the younger species to grow up a bit, and for humanity to remember why we chose patience in the first place," Rise added quietly. Across the galaxy, other species were beginning to understand a fundamental truth about humans. They had never been the peaceful, diplomatic species they appeared to be. They were predators who had evolved beyond the need for constant demonstration of their lethality. They had learned that true power lies not in striking first, but in ensuring that when you do strike, it ends all arguments. The humans had a saying that was suddenly being translated and studied in war colleges and political academies throughout known space: "Speak softly and carry a big stick." The galaxy had finally heard humanity's soft voice, and now they understood just how big the stick really was.